Okay, welcome to the Cross Lake Budget Workshop and Special Council Meeting, August 8th. We could start with planning and zoning, huh?
Sure, and I can take that. What you've got in front of you is you've got two job descriptions, and this is coming from, Crow Wing County notifying us back in July that they're no longer, they want to terminate the contract for those services. So the first position is the Planning and Zoning Administrator. All of you have received a copy of that earlier last month.
Yes.
We've implemented your comments on that, and this is the final version. So for this and both of these, for this one specifically, we're looking for council action and a motion to approve the job description and post the position effective immediately, so we can find someone for that role.
Discussion first?
Does anybody have anything to add to it?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Henry.
I would like to see the planning function written into here in stronger language, because there's no planning being directed for the city as a whole. Okay? So I would like to see that written in stronger, because this is, when I read through, I see land management. I don't see planning.
What type of planning are you looking for?
Where they plan for parts of the city. We've talked about in the past creating industrial areas and creating different zones, and I came in and talked to them here the other day after the Cross Lakers meeting, and talked to them about where can certain things be placed and some of that stuff. But there needs to be planning for the city, and I think housing and that type of thing is one of them, but that's all planning function.
So do we need to
I'm not
address
sure
that
how to
in the
write that.
comprehensive plan more than?
Well, it's an ad, it's not you don't change the whole thing, but you write in the planning function and that to work with the city as a whole. But I'm not sure of the language, Mike. That's why I didn't write up anything and send it to you.
Okay.
Is that something that could be added in, or do we need to bring that back to city council?
No, it could be added in and just sent out for any,
So it's just a
Any,
city planning function that you want to add into there and make sure that they've got some background in doing?
I think that needs to be written in, because that's not, even though they call it, it's not, everything I'm reading is land management. It's just exactly what we've been doing for the last several years.
Right, I think you'll see in the second paragraph where we state, the position has accountability for a number of distinct functions encompassing the
Which one are you on?
I'm on the Planning and Zoning Administrator. On the
Okay.
job description, it's item 2A, second paragraph,
Yeah.
first sentence. We felt we had that function covered when we included the administration and enforcement of the Cross Lake Land Use
But I don't see it
Ordinance,
under,
Cross Lake Comprehensive Plan.
but I don't see it written in elsewhere.
Conservation Act. And that's what the plan is that planning process.
Well, but it needs to go beyond comprehensive plan. It needs to talk about working with the city and developers and stuff on where do we want the developments and so forth to come. We sit back and we wait for a developer to come in and say, I want to put up pole barns, and then we react to it.
Why don't you add at the end of the first sentence, the word planning? Position has accountability for a number of distinct functions encompassing the planning, administration, enforcement of the Cross Lake Land Use Ordinance, Cross Lake Comprehensive Plan, and the Wetland Conservation Act.
Maybe make it proactive planning,
Yeah?
because we tend to do everything hindsight versus looking forward.
So right now, we're working with the county, and when we bring something like this up, they say, what do you want us to do? Give us direction. You're looking for somebody to take that and give direction.
Yes. When we got into certain
So-
things, we always heard the comment back to us,
Yeah.
well, we
I
can't
get
do
it.
that because, and I want them to be able to do that.
So can you come up with some
And I'm fine
wordage
with
or
what you
something
just
for that?
said, Dave.
What?
I'm fine with you just said, the change that you just commented on.
Proactive planning, as I understood you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess we all got to be aware of that and see it through.
Is that okay with you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
And then that leaves it, just so they know
Yep.
that they can do that, and should do it.
Supposed to.
That's listed as a distinct function, now,
Yeah.
if we add that in, so,
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
good.
So I got to ask, what's the difference in these two? The red one and this one? Is this the updated one? Do I just have copies? Do I get,
They're two different jobs.
okay,
We're looking at the first one right now,
okay,
Yeah.
which is the planning and zoning administrator.
all right, I'm sorry.
I make a motion, we approve that with the changes
And I-
discussed.
I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
You second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, passes.
Okay, we'll get that posted tomorrow. Get it sent out for posting.
It won't be in the paper until next week.
Yeah,
Is that 2 weeks or 2 times? What's the,
No, one time.
one time.
1 time is it?
Okay, item 2B on your agenda is the planning and zoning coordinator. Now, we already have job descriptions for that position. We actually had two. We had a planning and zoning coordinator and then a GIS coordinator, which were two separate positions listed in our union contract. Now, this one is already listed in the union contract, so what Shar and I did is we went through the job descriptions we had and we clarified them and updated the language in them. And what you're seeing, what we updated is what is in red. See, the last time that job was updated was back in 2012, which was quite a while ago. So some of the job duties overlap in both of those positions. So we made sure that we were covering the duties that we needed to accomplish for that role. Okay, so what you're seeing, the red changes are the additions, the crossed out items are the things that were not necessary, like the ability to operate a global positioning system. No, we didn't think the coordinator needed to do that.
Do we still have a GIS coordinator, or is that sort of included in this? Or it's not needed, or
We really don't need it.
don't need it? Got it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to understand what the
Well, Ted,
part was.
a while back, we had talked about taking John and marking all the sewer stubs. Remember that? All the stuff that really isn't documented?
All of the manholes are already GISed. WSN did that as part of the project. The ones that are, the things that are not are an unhooked up sewer stub. And I can work with John and with Trimble and start developing that.
Yeah, that would, especially before you leave, it'd be good to put in whatever it would save us some heartache in years to come. Okay, so we need a motion to approve this? or-
I'm so move.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and clean that up and then get it posted. Okay? Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, the next one is the need to purchase the property behind Andy's. So Crosswood Developments has opened up the possible buying that property. And Mr. Anderson sent a little letter that I think I'll just read out for the audience here. Crosswoods Development LLC is offering to sell the above-mentioned parcel of land to the city of Cross Lake for the price of $275. If the city wants to get a certified appraisal on the property, the price would be the lesser of the appraisal or $275. Offer is good for 6 months in order for the city to get proper easement and plans together. Below are a few minor contingencies that I believe the city should be in favor of. One is the city would need to obtain easements to property from adjoining landowners to access the property should the city not elect to have access off of County Road 3. Two, it would be the desire of Crosswoods Development that the land be used for a nature preserve with pedestrian bike trails, nature kiosks, trail directional signage, picnic area, nature oversights, and parking as needed for the community. Number 3, Crosswoods Development would like to sit on a committee to help develop this property with the surrounding accesses. Number 4, these improvements should be developed within the next 3 years. So, how do you feel about that? I think the community has had a real interest in buying that property. I think the Loon Center is going to end up inevitably coming, and there's going to be a need for additional parking. So I guess I'm not going to sit here and ramble on. I'm in favor of it. Anybody have any?
I don't think the need is gonna hit us like a ton of bricks until the roundabout comes. I think when the roundabout comes and they start wiping out all that parking, that's when we're gonna get in trouble. I'm not so sure we're in trouble today.
Maybe not, but
But I
this is
think
an
it's
opportunity
coming.
for the city to secure a pretty valuable chunk of property down there.
I guess one of the concerns I would have, and I'm just seeing it for the first time now, he says 3 years. 3 years might be a pretty tight time frame, depending what gets looked at. But
Well-
I'm sure that's open to discussion.
Yeah, and I think the 3 years that's probably when he's looking that the Loon Center will be developed and need, and so, yeah, I mean, might as well call it what it is, but
I don't know. I'm interested. I want to know what the property is worth and have the evaluation. I know that.
I think my interest was just looking at all the other things we're doing, and this is not a huge sum of money, but it's another potentially $275,000. So I'm looking at just of all the things we're thinking of doing. and
my
then
comment
just
to
an
that
extra.
is that, I would caution that if we don't do this, it's going to go someplace else, and then we're going to miss an opportunity.
Gotcha.
And I don't know how many more there are down in that area.
Well, we got the one at Public Works, and I think that's about the same amount of money, isn't it?
The Public Works, you mean back where the burning is, back behind there?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a Public
I
Works.
think that's in this year's budget, though. I don't know how that affects.
No.
It's not. Oh, okay.
But that is, that may benefit Public Works and the burn pile down there, but it's
Well,
not gonna,
When we get to, what the building we're talking about, when we get to having the need for the second plan,
yeah, well, I mean, that's valuable too. I'm not gonna take that
I
away.
guess I just don't want to see it get lost in the curly shuffle.
So the contingencies is to develop a plan of what to do with the property and then evaluate what the final price would be. I would think we'd get an appraisal for sure, find out what it is. Actually, Shar looked up today and the county values that property at $201,000.
Well,
Crossroads
that's
is-
different than an evaluation.
Well, I mean, that's what it's taxed on, so.
So you guys haven't seen the study that's being done by WSN. That should get sent to you.
Study,
Traffic and pedestrian study that we authorized them to do in the county, splitting some of it, but I've got a copy of it, and I can't remember how I ended up on the committee.
well, I
but-
came to, they had a meeting here a
Right,
week or
and
so
one of their
ago.
comments was, over the busiest time of the year, Cross Lake is busy in the morning hours, not so much in the afternoon. A lot of shared parking in the downtown commercial district is empty. Now, we've got parking at Andy's. We don't own the land, but we take care of it, and Andy's is a parking lot. There's parking in the streets. The study's not done yet. We got a lot on the plate. We haven't even gone over the budget for next year. I don't know that this is an immediate thing we have to jump on, but it needs to at least wait until this study's done.
When is that study set to be done, do you know?
I don't know. They got it in here. Does anybody remember from how long it's going to take them? I don't.
I believe they're tentatively looking at presenting that at an open house on the 15th of this month.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I believe they have a tentative date to present their findings at an open house on the 15th of this month.
Yeah, and that would be at the Cross Lakers meeting
At Zorba's?
at Zorba's, which starts at 5:30.
5:30?
5:30. So that's my take on this. I'm just not so sure we need to jump on this. And 275 is a chunk, Plus, it's the sewer connections there. Then we're gonna wipe that connection off if, something else would want to pop in that deal. So I think we have time to wait. I'm just not so big on dumping another 275 into something right now.
If you look at the future, you definitely don't have room for the Loon Center parking. I guess I would be in favor of purchasing it, but
The study shows that we're
I don't know
using
how long you can wait.
half of that property, half of our parking is used up, but I think we all know on busy days, more than half of it's used up. I don't know if they're saying the parking on the highway is available parking. Eric, do you know if they're claiming that? On 3 or 66, is that parking on the side shoulder of the road there?
Yeah,
So they're,
but only up to the bridge, and then
but right across from Andy's, you can park on the road right there.
No.
no, that's a
Okay.
turn lane.
On either, okay, but I mean, once you get past the turn line, you can.
Yeah, if you come to the north, you can park, there's, turn lane, right turn lane that goes into the core. You can park to the north of that.
But I don't think you can park
But
from
anything
Swan.
On the east side of the road, you can't. That's all,
Okay, so they're not, yeah.
But can you park on the other side?
You got a pedestrian crosswalk there that you shouldn't be able to for,
you've got the right turn lane that turns into the core.
But if you're coming north?
If you're coming north, you've got the right turn lane going north on 3, and then you got the historic village.
Yeah, but if you keep coming up to
north
Swan
of that
Drive.
intersection.
No, there's nothing north of, or south of Swan Drive and 66 that you can park on.
In fact, it runs up past the school a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a couple spots, but nothing.
I just wanted to mention that this pedestrian and the study that the county and the city and the Loon Center have entered into, it's gonna address a lot of these things and have a lot of recommendations in it. Some of it might be that some of those parking spots that are on the county road go away. They become turn lanes, they become, even that the sidewalk on the school side, or there becomes a sidewalk on that side. If that's the case, then the curb line's gotta come out to give us enough room to put it in. So I'm just hesitant to say that that parking's always gonna be there. And until we get through the plan, we're not gonna know.
How long? I mean, roughly.
I think the plan is supposed to be to us sometime here in September from WSN.
So Brad, if we were just to do an appraisal on that property, who would do that? And would that be something so we knew what the number was?
Well, it takes a month or two to get an appraisal, so you could do, even if you're not sure you're supportive of buying it, you could order it now just in case.
Find out what the
but-
number
But
is.
you gotta pick, there's no right person for the appraisal, it's whoever you guys wanna hire. I could throw out 10 names, but so could probably other people here.
We'd probably just look for a recommendation from you.
But we have 6 months here? So we
Yeah,
have
there's a
6 months.
six-month window here.
Well-
I mean, if you're interested, you should probably get an appraisal. And
No,
then
I-
let's get this study done to see what they come
But
back.
part of, I think, what Jim's plan is to get those storefront owners in the back parking lot on board with this thing, so that we can access it without going on 3 through by Holiday, create a little alley or something that goes back to a potential parking spot, and then utilize that parking area back there, and that's privately owned by those store owners. That really isn't utilized at all now. So we'd really get a lot of parking, but we'd have to get them all on board with it, so they'd be willing to do it. So, I mean, and that can all be done before any purchase or anything is done. On another note, I think to pay for this thing, this is an added asset to the city. It's a piece of real estate that's going to be there forever. So I think to take some of that phone company money might be a good purpose for that, to at least purchase the land so we don't have to budget for it. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I think let's get through the evaluation, let's get through the needs assessment, and then let's worry about that part of it, because I think if we try to plan it out, it'll bubble over on us.
so if somebody makes a motion to have an appraisal done on it, so we know what the number is, would we want to get somebody talking to some of the private business owners there to see what their interest would be? Start talking about it?
I think-
Developing a plan?
I don't know. I think, let Jim know that we have definite interest. I think do the appraisal, and let them know that we have this study coming and that we will be waiting until after we've officially received the study until we make any further decisions.
And that
I don't know
study
if that
is,
makes sense.
I think that makes sense.
that's August 15th, Dave, right? Not September. That's August 15th that they're gonna,
I don't think they're going to, from memory, I don't think they're going to get that study done, but I think what they're going to do is present their findings. Char's going to email this to you guys, so you'll see it, but there's all sorts of findings and what they did, you know, the engineers that were there, the drone footage, the cameras. They talked about, there's too many entrances and exits from Andes up towards Holiday. They say they may come back and say, you got to plug up some of these because there's cars coming on and off. Swan Drive was a nightmare. Everybody wanted to turn right.
I'm waiting for somebody to
so-
get run over there.
Yeah,
I'm
so
waiting for
there's
that.
still recommendations that are coming.
there was a lot of talk about
Terrible
added bike
intersection.
paths all
Yep.
over the place.
Yep, they had that too.
So
Another path on the east side of the road they're looking at, so.
So, but I would make that as a motion. I'd be fine doing what I just think.
so
I
go
just
ahead and
said.
make it.
Okay. Poor Shar has to keep trying to keep up with me. The motion would be to let Jim know that we distinctly have interest in it, to direct Brad to get an evaluation on the property, and to, what was the third part of it? There was a third, to let Jim know that we are waiting for the study to come in before we take any further action, the pedestrian parking study.
Before you second that, I don't want to just pick on my own necessarily. Bill Ludinia, Melinda Johannick are two commercial appraisers. Do you care?
I don't know any, so I don't have an
Anybody have
opinion.
a,
I don't know either of them, so I don't care.
Or two coats, yeah.
talking $500, so it's not probably that big a deal, but I can give them both.
Just so we have a good objective appraisal of it, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
either side.
I'm going to just throw this out. I don't know, maybe it's rude to do this, but, you know, I know Jim's very involved in the Loon Center, but suppose he'd contribute reducing the price?
Well, I think
If we
that's
bu-
part of
if
the...
we- If, you know, if we invested some money into it and he kicked in some because he's developing the Loon Center,
He indicated
You know.
wanting to be a part of the committee.
but I'm looking for, you know, because once you get it, then we're going to, it's some more money to get it all.
Another idea is, I know you've always provided free maintenance and parking to all those businesses, but you could charge for that. If you do it in the back, you could charge rent, or that's another way to offset costs. But, I mean, other businesses don't have free snow plowing and parking.
The back of those businesses private up to the woods, though. I mean, that is their parking area that they don't use.
No, but if you utilize, I don't know if you're going to use city land, I don't know what your vision is right now.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it for the first time, but I'm just, if that is parking space, I mean, there could be some employee parking that you charge for. Not huge money, but it's some, that's another way to offset costs.
You know, it depends what the price comes back at, but I think I know this. I'm going to talk like I know what I'm talking about, but I think,
Second first before we
Oh,
have
okay.
too much discussion.
do we have a
I
second?
made the
on-
motion, so...
I'll make a second, I'll second it. Any discussion?
I think we need to be careful to tell, not to tell anyone that we are absolutely buying it, but that we are
We're not.
looking at and we're working toward that direction,
Yeah.
okay?
But I'm just going to throw a couple things out. I think Jim had it sold to Babinski's for 300 or a little more than that. Now, that fell through.
Yeah.
He's asking 275. I believe he paid 200 for it.
And it's already surveyed.
101
that
is
we
what the
can use.
tax shows. So, you know, depending on what the price is, I mean,
That's what we're going to find out.
yeah, we'll find that out. And then see if he's still willing and where we're at, but.
But I don't think I would form a committee today or get a committee going to work on this until we have better information.
Should we put it out? Well, can I add to that motion? I guess I'm not gonna. Let's finish the motion, huh? So we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I was going to say, should we try to do it at the September, at least bring it up and talk about it again at the September meeting?
I think once we find that out, then we put it on the agenda.
Yeah, let's see what the appraisal, when it comes back.
The appraisal and
Or not the appraisal, but the study.
well, the appraisal too, because that won't take that long to do.
The only thing I could
Weeks,
say
I don't
about
know
your
about-
study is if it don't come out till
But
January
you're
or
talking about
February.
a month or 6
I just
weeks.
don't know when it's coming,
Yeah.
you know?
I believe it's scheduled for September.
Yeah.
I'll get the exact date on it.
Well, let's tentatively try to talk about it at the September meeting,
Okay.
just so we don't drag them out too long, you know?
Good plan.
Okay. All right, Ted, are you going to do the feasibility studies? We're going to jump into that?
I can if you want me to.
Yeah, I think if you could. Let's see, yeah, that's next.
There was a recommendation that came first out of the Water Quality Group to look at the 5 storm sewer outfalls along 66 that are going to be excavated during the project for installing new sewer main. They asked asked WSN to come up with a proposal. WSN got the proposal to the city. Meantime, Melissa from the Soil and Water told us that there was an option of maybe getting some more grant money to help pay for the work. Mike and I took it upon ourselves to verbally tell WSN to move forward with the project. About that time, Mike emailed you that feasibility study. And about that time, the mayor came back and said, why are we having our WSN do something that Bolton and Mink is already going to be doing work in the area for? We asked Bolton and Mink, and we already had this in front of us. So we had a cost estimate of that already in front of us. We asked Bolton and Mink then to, could they give us this and could they meet the deadline? Because there's a deadline of September 9th to apply for the grant money. And both of the companies said they can meet that grant timeline, but so Bolton and Mink did say they could. So then a couple days later, we get this one, and it comes in and then just another thing in there. We asked WSN to hold up before we move forward any farther, and we'd asked Bolton and Mink to give us this quote. We asked WSN, they hadn't started on anything, so we asked them to hold up. So Bolton and Mink come in at $76, and WSN was $9,800. A motion was made at Public Works then this past Monday to go forward with Bolton and Mink for their quote. Kind of where we're at today. There's a lot of other stuff that's kind of behind the scenes that I don't know how far I want to get into and elaborate on, but that's kind of where it comes to. Both the mayor and myself were at the water quality meeting. Neither one of us caught that we were asking WSN for something that Bolton Mink was already doing work in the area, so. I wasn't thinking that, I was thinking the grant. When I was thinking WSN, I was thinking, I'm going after more grant money, trying to help out the city as much as I can, so.
So let me play it a little bit, huh?
Okay?
The Water Quality Group got together doing a stormwater study. They had a meeting. WSN, Dave Reese was there. Ted and I were there. And through the conversation, we need a feasibility study. What's it going to cost to do the storm sewer? After the meeting was done, I'm driving out of there thinking, confused like I am, but why didn't Bolton Mink get an opportunity to do it? Because they are already doing the sanitary sewer up on that corridor. So I think I emailed Mike, and then I called Phil Martin and said, why weren't you at that meeting? He said, I didn't know the meeting was going on, which is irritating to me. Why? The water quality meeting is not really a city function. If it was, Shar would have emailed them, told everybody to be there, they would all have been present, and we would have put the dots together. But anyway, there was an email sent from Phil Martin, Bolton Mink, to Ted and Mike the day before this meeting, and it's just outlining the storm sewer and a couple other things, and I didn't see it till after the meeting. Ted didn't see it. I don't know if you did or not, Mike, but you know, Phil had sent the day before saying, let me know if there's anything I can do, and then this meeting comes up. But even back to that, back in January, when we reappointed everybody to their functions in the city, we made Bolton Mink the sewer engineer for the city for the year. Now, is sewer sanitary only? Is it sanitary and storm? It never was clarified. Conversation is that storm sewer typically goes with road projects. So that we need to clarify. I'm still not comfortable with that. But so after the the verbal go-ahead for WSN to go ahead with this project, all of a sudden we stumbled onto the rest of this, and I feel pretty strongly that Bolton Mink is already doing that sanitary sewer on that corridor, and that they should just do the storm with it. So we've got a choice now, who do we want to do it?
So I'm going to give you my 2 cents worth on this thing, because I have been involved in this, and I'm going to tell you, this is the reason we need to understand when we select an engineering firm in January what they're doing. That's and what the other ones can't do. And if you got WSN, you don't go out for quotes on everything that WSN is doing. You don't get quotes, okay? So that's one thing. The storm sewer comment versus the septic or the sanitary sewer. We started last fall and had a survey done. We authorized Bolton and Mink to do a survey. For that reason, we gave them the sewer project if we were going to do it. All right. Now, what's important here is we interrupted a process that had to get done in early September.
Correct.
And we have commitments from both of these companies that they'll write up the grant paperwork so that we get a chance to get a grant to help pay for this done. So I hope that hasn't been disrupted here. The problem I have is you got a bid in earlier, and then you ask this guy to bid, all right? And I'm pretty sure that this price was well known because everybody saw it here. So did these guys see that price or didn't they? I don't want to have Cross Lake, the city, get a bad reputation for doing business this way. If we're going to get bids, you get them out at the same time, and you don't go back and get a second one after you got somebody's in their hand. So that's the rub that I have. I think they both can do the project. It makes sense that if one firm's managing the construction of the project and it's the same area you're going to do this work in, that they do it. So that's my 2 cents worth. So that's my issue is with the timing of the bids here, and I think we have to address that. I don't know if you guys can work up some policy on that we don't go out and do this again. We don't get, when we get a bid, you get them all at the same time, and then you go off from there.
But it was kind of a comedy of errors from the beginning with the day, because actually, technically, the water quality group shouldn't be authorizing any monies to be spent on it. So, but Ted and I were the ones that kind of said, go ahead and do it. And I'm not able to do that on my own either, as we all know. But I mean, that's kind of where the ball started fumbling.
Right.
So what we've requested out of this process was to when the water quality does have a meeting, we'd like to know about it so we can post it and share that information. And then just remind the committees that they're advisory and they make recommendations for the council to consider going forward. Now in this case, this didn't happen in like a 2-day period. The water quality committee meeting was on the 16th. Ted and I were both invited to a meeting with the Soil and Water Conservation on the 23rd. On the 24th of July, we confirmed that those deadlines could be met. And we did inform WSN that said, look, there's some risk here that the council might not want to do this in conjunction with the sewer project. This is storm sewer. We're looking at sewer. We also had talked about, we've got a lot of projects going on and we're trying to figure out what the cost of these are going to be with their assessment policies. So the understanding was, yeah, if you're going to start working on this, there is a risk that at this meeting, we could choose, go another decision, and you're just going to be out. Now, we didn't want to do that. And then on the 25th is when we got Bolt and Mink involved. So that's kind of how we got there in a nutshell. So it didn't happen over like a 1 or 2 day period. There was about a week and a half here. But again, you know, as Ted said, both firms have committed to doing that. In an ideal world, we would have, you know, made that request for another quote at the meeting on the 16th. So that's what happened. And so here we are. So now you folks get to decide which one you
What
want
to
to go
do.
with. But
Is there legal ramifications?
Council Schrupp makes up a good point on that, you know, we need to understand what we're assigning these engineers to do for consulting services at the beginning of the year, and, you know, not split hairs down the road when we're trying to get a project done. Because we do have a pretty strict deadline on this. You know, we're looking at substantial funding for the storm sewer portion of it.
So the deadline is off the table, though. They both committed that they can do that.
They both committed. They're competitors. They're willing to do what it takes to get it done. So that's not an issue anymore.
Sure, Tom, you want to say something? Come on up.
I was at the Public Works meeting, and there was actually 2 motions made, and the Public Works Commission had basically the same discussion you guys are having. How did this happen? You know, the whole timeline thing. And we also had a lengthy discussion on which engineer would do the Daggett Bay Road project, because that started out, Widseth was working with High Tech on the project. Well, then it got extended to run sewer up to,
Brook Street.
yeah. And so we had this lengthy discussion, and I'm not sure if the motions, if you're waiting for next week's meeting to present those motions, but there were 2 motions made to recommend. The first one was, after the whole discussion went through, there was a motion made to have Bolton and Mink do the storm sewer project, and that the second recommendation is that the city authorize WSN to do the complete project over there. Both engineers got a job. It's not a perfect world. I talked to Mark Hallen for a few minutes after the meeting. WSN, they don't have, you know, any hard feelings over
Good, okay.
that, and they're getting the other one. So in the future, you know, just like you guys are saying, it's got to be made clear when you have 2 engineers, you know, what each is doing. But I think I know the chairman of the Public Works and myself are both of the opinion that you don't intermingle the engineers in the same project. You know, if County Road 66 entails both road and sewer and storm sewer, you have one engineer do it. And the same thing with Daggett Bay Road. You wouldn't have Bolton and Mink designing the sewer because they're the sewer engineer, and then you have WSN dealing with the road section. So it may come down to a project-by-project recommendation that you have a project, and then you hire an engineer to do that project. So I don't know if that helps what Dave was questioning, you know, is this fair? The one came in after the other, and, you know, we had that same discussion at Public Works, and both engineering companies walked away with
Well,
a job.
I mean, are we supposed to not, like Dave was saying, a commission or a volunteer group like the Water Quality, they might make a request to get an appraisal or a quote, but nothing happens until you guys decide or we decide? I mean, that.
It should probably
that-
be the same, just like Public Works. You know, if they can make a motion to recommend something to the city council, but if you're gonna spend city money on it, you make a recommendation, and you guys are the ones that,
So it comes up through a
Approval.
commission.
Yep,
Yeah.
comes up through the
All
commission.
right, that would make sense.
And at the Public Works meeting, for whatever it's worth, it was a 5-1 vote. There were 6 people at the commission. It was 5-1 to have Bolton Mink do this project out here on 66 and let WSN do the Daggett Bay. So that's what they came here with.
Yeah. I would just, you know, if we're going to vote on Bolton, make sure that they erase or change, get something in writing on making the commitment to September 3rd, because his proposal says they're going to finish it in 30 days, and that won't make it.
Well, they've committed to that, right?
Well,
Couple
verbally,
times.
didn't
Well, not in writing.
he? Get it in writing,
Yep.
because that's the only thing that counts.
Okay, but
I thought I read where they did.
I thought so too, but they verbally did.
Well, that was an email that Mike had talked to both of them to, so.
So anyway, I mean, it was definitely a fumbled ball. There's no question about it on a lot of counts, but, you know, I'd still would like to clarify the storm sewer and the sanitary and what the engineering responsibilities are that we appointed in January.
Mr. Mayor, maybe this is not the time for that, because I know we're on a time crunch to get
Right,
the budget
right.
done in the next part of your meeting, but,
No,
yeah, and I apologize, I mean, I was just trying to move forward to get to a grant, and that's the only thing I see was grant money. Normally, everything is always brought through the council. We were just trying to get the next part done, so.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of beaten it up enough.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we go with Bolton and Mink for the, out on 66.
I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
And update their proposal?
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you, Dave.
Their
Make it by
commitment.
9/3.
Yeah.
If they can't meet it, we're going back to
Right.
Winsett.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now the fun stuff. What you have in front of you is a very high-level summary budget package. And what I'd like to do for the purposes of this meeting is kind of get a feel from the council on what your expectations are. I've got a pretty good idea of what they are, but I'd like to get some more concrete direction now that I've got some very preliminary numbers, so we can direct staff to do what we need to do to meet your budget expectations. So just real quickly, on the second page of that document, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our timeline. Again, our next meeting is on the 22nd at 4 p.m. The meeting after that will be on September 5th. And our September meeting is on the 9th of September, at which time I would like the council to consider certifying the preliminary levy. Now, if we're not able to do that, we can have another meeting in September, if need be. Okay? But for right now, what I'd like is the council to agree to the date of December 9th, 2019 for the truth and taxation levy. We'll do it as part of a regular council meeting like we've done in the past. And if you're ready to certify the levy right after that, we can do that too. That's typically what we've done, at least as long as I've been here. Okay, is that agreeable to everyone?
Yeah, but we do have the 30th. I mean, if we,
Yep,
Yeah.
September for preliminary.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. Just some real high-level assumptions. The pay 20 levy includes a provision for the new capital improvement bonds. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll need to talk about some staffing, things going on in public works, parks, and police, and fire. The EDA is working on their budget, so for discussion purposes, I just carried it forward from last year. I did talk to both Patty and Dean Fitch, so they're working on that. Right now, there's no adjustment in the sewer as far as rates go. expenditures. I've provided you some high-level history in the budget going back to about 2012, and I've separated it between what we call operating, capital items, and then debt. And what you'll notice is going back to about 2012, and even prior than that, operations stay pretty much the same every year. The only thing that really changes in operating characteristics is if we add staff or change departments or do something different. I mean, the light bill costs about the same as it did last year, the phone bill's about the same, the utility bill's about the same. We've got the union contracts and the salary schedules built into there. And so when we look at this budget, the real big dollars where we have opportunities to change things, to add things or delete things, are really going to be in the capital areas and how we fund those. So the capital expenditures are going to make up about, the lion's share of our discussion on this, because again, that's where the big dollars are. So as you notice, the last 13 or 14 pages of this budget is our capital plan that we've extended out. Now, what I've provided to the group is going out 5 years, but we do have it extended out to 2037. So it goes out quite a while. Some of the things we need to consider is, I'll give you a quick update on our bonding issuances. I've had several meetings with the bond raters and the funding agencies. I should be getting our official bond rating probably by the end of this week. I think you're going to be very happy with the results. So that's a good thing. Some of the projects we have going on are City Hall, Police and Fire. That's about $5 million. Perkins Road's about $500,000, roughly. Big Pine Trail that we've already committed to is about $600,000. And we've got a placeholder in the budget of $1.3 million, $1.6 million for the sewer, roughly. So if we add those up, that's about just over $7 million worth of projects we're looking at taking on next year, not including we need to buy this land, or we need to make this deal, or we need to fix this road that we didn't consider. So just be aware there's a big number out there we're trying to figure out what to do with. And that does not include costs for the storm sewer. So what I've done in
Can I
this...
just question something
Sure.
on that, Mike? You have not considered assessments on those numbers, though, correct?
I have not considered assessments on those numbers, but either way, we need to generate the cash to pay for the project. So they will change,
Yeah.
but probably not by 50%.
But are there any union contracts going this year? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
We had really good success in settling those contracts.
So you already know the
Yep.
numbers.
In fact, we spent part of a day with Teamsters, part of a day with AFSCME, before and after and before the end of the year respectively, and I think we did a good job getting those settled with a minimal amount of effort. We realized we had some challenges, and they realized they had some too, and we were able to agree on a lot of things. So when you look at this budget, one of the challenges I've had is usually by now I have tax rates are a pretty good idea. Now, Crow Wing County implemented a new finance system, and it's extremely difficult to get detailed information. They're struggling, we're struggling. Yeah, they've been really good to work with on it, but for all practical purposes, I don't have projected rates going into next year. So for the purposes of our discussion, I'm just going to roll forward this year's rates, assuming that they'll be at least that amount for tax values, okay?
Do you have any info when their system will be up and working that you could get data from them?
They said maybe next year.
Okay?
We're having trouble getting detail on special assessments right now. So we're kind of making some assumptions on who paid their assessments and who didn't. Because we know what the amounts are, we're just not sure which party paid them.
With our property statements we got this year, they're showing for some properties an increase in what their perceived value of them for next year, so.
Yep. And what I'm seeing is if I go back, 3 years, I'm looking at somewhere between 2% and 3%. And then there's adjustments, so it comes out pretty close, depending on when they were valued. So it's kind of a guess at this point. So there's some information on the pay 29 calculations. There's also some information in there on pages 3 and 4 of that document that show how we compare to other communities. It's all information you've seen in the past, okay? When I look at page 5, there's some comparative information on prior years, going back to 2016, on the changes in your levy. Now, this is where I would try to project out what next year is going to look like, which I don't have the data to do that, so I'm just going to roll forward last year's 2019 levy numbers. So without spending a lot of time on that, let's just look at page 6. You know, and what page 6 is really a high-level summary of what the financial statement for 2020 might look like. And so the number I'm interested in mostly on this page,
Right there.
I'll make it bigger the other way, how's that? Is if I look down at, kind of on the lower left, I want to know what changed. So if our operations are fairly stable, and this is before we consider any staffing requests, and if I add what we're projecting for the new debt service on the project for City Hall, Police, and Fire, that item alone, all things being equal, a little over 8%, okay? That's because if you think about it, we have to get we have to collect our money to pay the bonds before we have to pay them. The first payment would be due in February 2021. There'd be a small interest payment in probably August of next year. And you really need to have those funds on hand before you have to make the payment on it, okay?
What was that percentage last year? Was it 7 or 5?
It was 7.
7,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one of the things we've accomplished through the budgeting process is we've been able to, in some years, pay for large road projects with cash, a combination of cash and debt. So what we're doing is working. But the challenge we have is what I mentioned earlier is that's a big number of projects out there we need to look at. And the question for you folks will be, how much do you want to take on, and are you willing to adjust your numbers appropriately to pay for it through a combination of levy and assessments and spending down cash? So when I look at this, I look for opportunities to try to make that adjustment lower. One of the things we have, and I'll show you this real quickly, is this is the payment schedule for the bonds, and I'll just show you the important parts on here. But when you levy for debt, you have to levy 105% more than what your payment is, because not everyone pays their taxes, there's delinquents. And so if I look at the delinquency factor, ours is very low. We collect about 98.9% of every dollar we levy. And in fact, in most years, because we've got so many years, 7 years of outstanding delinquent levies right now, like everyone else does, we actually collect more dollars than the amount that we levy, because we collect interest and we collect the delinquent levies from prior years when property changes hands. So collecting our levy isn't a problem. The item it creates, issue it creates, is when you get to the end of a debt service schedule, you end up with extra cash, because you're required to levy more than you need. And if you never take a look at how much cash you've collected on each of those specific levies, you can end up with some extra money. And so in this case, if we look at our total principal and interest payments on this one, in this example, would be $803,000. But our total levy requirement is $841,000 because of delinquents. And so when you get to the end of it, you can project out that you're going to have extra cash. So if I look at our debt service fund, and I go back and I look at the cash balances, and I look at all the bond issues that have been paid off over the last 20 plus years, we've got enough money right now for those expired bonds that have been paid off. to make the final payment on our fire truck that we have right now. And at the end of July, we had $311,000 in our debt service fund. Of that cash balance, $97,000 of it relates to the fire truck certificates, and $44,000 of it relates to the bonds we issued last year for Manhattan Point. So we have $170,000 that we can either transfer to the general fund and do something else with, or we can use it to replace one of our existing levies. And so I'm going to suggest we use it to make the last payment on the fire truck
Which
next
fire
year.
truck?
The one we bought in 2015. So
Is that, you haven't reflected that in these numbers?
I have not reflected that in these numbers. I'm just giving you some opportunities for things
So
we
what would
can.
that do to the levy then?
The levy would go down by about $155,000, which in this case would change that 8.3% to about 4.2, roughly. But, not sure if we want to do that. That's a one-time shot, okay? We can only do that once. And we've got some other challenges. So, for example, Ted, not that he's challenging, but he's giving us a challenge because he's informally, tentatively announced his retirement. Probably January of 2021. So partway through next year, we're probably looking at, we should probably start looking for someone to replace Ted's position as our Public Works Director. The other thing we have going on is we're looking at other projects like what do we want to do with sewer inspections? Do we want to have an official on hand? Who's going to do that work? Who's going to tackle the VRBO issues? Chip?
I was going to comment on that. I don't know where that stands, but down the road, if they do put type something in place for VRBOs, fire inspections will be needed.
Correct. So there's some unintended consequences. So what you're really looking at is for next year, is you're looking for about a half a head count to replace Ted, because you probably want to bring somebody on board, you know, so we can get somebody qualified. I mean,
Bring somebody on board 4 months ahead or sometime.
a few months ahead, or at least an appropriate length of time ahead, so we can have a smooth transition.
I think you just need to get rid of that word probably and just say you will bring.
We will need to do that.
There is
In
no-
advance, so it's a smoother transition. I agree
Yep.
100% with that.
And so you're looking at a full-time person. You're looking at potentially someone to help out in planning and zoning, an admin type of individual. Not sure what they're going to do yet, but we're looking at trying to,
And they're not in here?
and they're not in here either.
So you're saying keep that 170 for floating to cover something on the,
Well, you can either keep that 170 in there and use it for these other purposes, because if you're looking at a shared type of person between planning and zoning and admin and police potentially, and fire, of course.
What are all the different ones we're looking at? You're talking about the septic system and working with that, checking them and starting all that?
Yep,
Then you're talking about the fire inspector. Would that be part-time, full-time, or are you talking about?
I'd probably be doing that.
Chip would be doing that.
Inspecting those VRBOs. Yeah.
So you're looking at one head count for certain, and possibly up to 3 full-time equivalents. And that might be 4 people, but you're probably looking at somewhere between 2 and 4 full-time equivalents when you take in, now we're looking at,
But 170,000 is
park.
not going to cover that.
that's
well,
my
the
point.
VRBO and the sewer are both designed to pay for themselves through licensing.
That's not going to work, Dave. we're not going to generate enough in license fees to pay a full-time equivalent.
Okay, well,
I don't think the math works out on that.
well, we haven't set the math on it yet, though. We haven't established what it is.
Right,
The idea is to do that
Yeah.
anyway.
Aren't we further ahead on, we're not too far in Verbo, right?
No,
no.
But we are ahead, we have made a commitment on the inspection, and there's other things. And we
Well,
haven't,
he's talking RVBO inspections. I'm talking about our home septic
Yeah.
systems being inspected.
but Verbos might not, I'm just concerned that we think we can do all this next year, and it ain't gonna happen. We just
Yeah.
don't do a good job at that. So let's just take a smaller bite and figure out what the septic inspector, or whatever we gotta still figure out a job description and what they're gonna do, and how much time it's gonna take them, and that type of stuff. So that we got a lot of work to do before we plug a number in here.
Okay.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Ted.
Well, and TJ and I both are looking, he's looking for a full-time staff, I'm looking for full-time staff over and above all this that isn't in,
Yeah.
besides replacing.
Yeah, so you're looking at 2 to 4 full-time equivalents just to stay even with what we're doing today and take on these additional duties. So those are things we got to think about as we're going through this process. And when I say, when you look at the city, it's pretty much the same every year. It snows, we plow the streets, we fix the roads. Things just work, but it takes a lot of effort to do that. And so where the big dollars are is in the capital plan, and that's the last 13 pages of that report. And so we need to understand how we're issuing debt with that, because what's going to happen between now and about 2024 is we're going to see a permanent blip in our debt load for about 2 to 3 years as we take these projects on and other bond issues get paid off. Now, 2020 is the last year for the fire truck. 2023 and 2024 is for the 2 bonds we have coming offline. So that'll free up some cash. 2023 going into 2024 is, there's about $300,000 of debt levy that'll come offline that we can use for other purposes. So when we look at this, we need to be looking at things like, the one thing we can control is spending. We can't control values, but we can control what we spend, and we can manage that. But we need to be realistic and understand what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to get there, because there's a price tag attached to it. And just for next year, it's over $7 million. Okay?
Mike, there was also discussion last meeting, I think it was on the Public Works building.
That's correct.
Is that gone anywhere, or, because that'll have implications, dollars?
Correct. In fact, we put that out in year 6 of our current plan. So 2020 being year 1. So that's out in year 6 right now. In the capital plan that we approved, the only facility it included was the project we'll be talking about on Monday.
Okay.
Okay? So what I'd like from this group is think about some of the numbers, think about your questions, the budgets you want. I've got lots of questions from Eric and Chip and Ted and TJ. TJ's got a plan for how we're going to fund pickleball courts. Ted's got some ideas, and I know Chip and Eric do too, on how to fund their departments. So it's a challenge. And so for our meeting on the 22nd, get me your ideas, what you'd like to see, what you're comfortable with. If you'd like something changed, say, I think this makes absolutely no sense, get rid of it, so we can talk about it, so we can have a real roll-up-your-sleeves kind of meeting and understand what we're trying to get done. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does, but I got to ask again now, when are we going to do the assessment? Is that going to be before the council meeting? 6 o'clock, we're going to try to talk about that?
Assessment policy.
The assessment policy on Monday, 6 o'clock.
So the assessment policy is going to cut your numbers in certain brackets down by 30 to 40%, I think.
You still still have to bond for the money up front, because some of that money's not gonna come in right away. You still, we're still responsible to pay the bill when they're done.
Right.
We're not gonna get the assessments, but you have to assume that it's gonna come in over time.
There's a couple ways you can do it. If you feel you have adequate cash funds and are willing to commit to that, you can finance these ourselves and assess them. We can do that. In fact, we did a real small one when we did the sewer connection for Ace Hardware. We self-funded that. We can do that. And not issue debt. But we need to know what the whole package looks like, and then we need to put that money aside so we know it's committed for that project, and we don't use it for something else.
And Bolton and Mink is working on a mock assessment for 66, and it'll be ready here in the near future to be reviewed with the council.
And I've worked with a lot of cities that do that. Your term series and your money markets and the things we're able to invest in are pretty low right now. You're under 2.5%. So if you've got extra cash, it's possible you could fund some projects that you assess and, make a little on the interest side.
Can I ask a question? What do you
Sure.
have in the budget for the two people that work in planning and zoning now? What number's in here?
I'm working within the same budget level
County numbers?
that the county had worked on. And that's really essentially how we figured out what the budget should be for that function. Now, when that transition is complete, we will have some capital costs this year that are not in the budget to pay for some equipment that's currently owned by the county.
Is that going to be a lot, do you think, or is that,
It's going to be around $15,000 or $20,000.
is that going to be annually or some of that?
No.
No.
No, we'll have some licensing, we'll have some, so what I call hard assets, and the soft assets will be like software and software licensing and things like that.
Okay.
Subscription services that, like Landshark is one of them. And that's a real estate app that attorneys and banks and real estate agents use that we need to use too then.
Okay.
Currently, we get it for free.
The county did boast of having a $40,000 surplus on what we pay them and what it cost.
Could be.
Yeah.
They haven't said that specifically to me. I don't know how they allocated costs, so.
Yeah.
When might we need to expand the sewer plant? What year, ballpark?
Don't change the legislation the way it is right now and the numbers. The next big thing is you're gonna have to address biosolids with the treatment plant, and that's probably 2 years from now. And that's probably gonna be something around that $1 million mark.
So relatively
The
soon.
treatment plant itself is gonna be probably out there, I don't remember where I gave you the number, like 2030 or something like that?
Yeah, and that's like a really big
It was
number.
like 20 years. You're probably good sitting for 20 years. If the growth stays the way it is, you're sitting in good shape.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was kind of a quick walkthrough at a high level, so I know you'll have questions.
And you haven't reflected anything with the city sales tax?
No, I have not.
That's
In
not
fact,
in
I
there,
spoke
so
to Ryan Pesch today, and they've got a preliminary report they've just about got finalized. So when that's made available, I'm certain I'll get a copy of it so we can look at that.
Is he from the university?
Yeah, he's
that-
from the
Yeah.
University of Minnesota Extension Service.
But that'd be 2021 before we see any income of any kind from that,
That would be the first. And remember,
if it goes through.
if it goes through.
Yeah,
So we need to be mindful of our capital outlay plan because we'll need to tag specific projects of regional benefit that are funded by sales tax.
yeah.
One of them is the project we're working on now for City Hall and Fire and Police.
Yeah.
And once that's established, you can petition to cancel the levies, the future levy requirement, because they have a funding source.
Okay, well, that's a little bit to think about.
Yeah,
So if we have to add an employee or two, then we need to giddy up on
yeah.
what they're going to do and what we're going to call them
Yep.
and how much they're going to get paid, and
Yep,
we aren't going to get all that done by September,
no,
but we might get it done by December. So
Possibly.
You're going to have to plug a number?
we're gonna have to decide to say, Mike, add a halftime, a .5 FTE for Ted and plug 3 more somewhere else, and let's see what it looks like. I've got a pretty good idea. I mean, you're not looking at a high-level supervisory type role, but then you're not looking at a real low non-skilled role too. So you're gonna be somewhere in between. You know, and I can come up with a few numbers. I've got a few ideas on what that might look like and what it would cost. It pretty much eats up the debt levy.
No, I was
We
just
talked
looking
about.
at this, that sewer person, that it's my understanding in working with Dave Fisher that it was a little bit of work to get the process going, but it was pretty much, the city's letting you know that you need to get back to us with a slip that says you paid for pumping or inspection, and we check it off in here. We don't necessarily have to show up and look at everybody's
No.
septic. So it's really just
But-
doing
but-
a mailing, letting people know what's going on, what we require, and following up, getting a database set up and making sure that these people are getting checked off, and then you got to follow up with the ones that are,
But I thought there had to be some kind of verification through the pumping service themselves or something to validate that it in fact was done, because it'd be easy for me to
Right.
just send in a note.
right. Well, they'll have, I get them from Honeywagon, they say, comments.
Yeah, I do too, yeah.
Same type of deal, I would assume that's, but, so anyways, that's something
Okay.
we got to work out on.
So again, our next meeting is on the 22nd at 4 PM. So chew on this. Let me know what you're comfortable. Let me know what you're hearing, what's going to be acceptable, what isn't, and we'll go from there. But the places where you have opportunities are in how much debt you issue and what you take on, what we take on for capital type items. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Brad? Want to close it now?
Sure.
Yeah, so we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
No,
Second? No?
motion,
Huh?
or more accurately, motion to adjourn the open meeting and authorize going to close for performance evaluation.
Yeah.
So we want to change it to that?
Okay, we need a
Gotcha.
motion to close the open meeting
So moved.
and adjourn to
Modify my motion.
close meeting for performance review
Yeah.
Yep.
of the administrator. Okay, so we got a
Sec-
motion,
He motioned, I second.
got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.